Welcome to the Your Leadership Legacy podcast. My name is Tina Paulus Kraus, and I'm so excited to bring you this next podcast dedicated to you high performers out there who want to reinvent yourself, reinvent your business, maybe your career, all of it. This podcast is all about being dedicated to transformation and being the best possible leader of yourself and others that you can be in order to create a legacy that lives on. Welcome to Your Leadership Legacy. My name is Tina Paulus Kraus. I am the founder and CEO of NYTimes. And here we go. Hey everyone, welcome to Your Leadership Legacy. My name is Tina Paulus Kraus, and I'm super excited today because we have Rachael O'Meara on with us today, and she is she's just got all kinds of a background and experience, and I can't wait to welcome you onto the show. How are you?
Hey Tina, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm doing well. I'm in shelter in place here in San Francisco. Otherwise, things are just humming along. Yep.
Yeah, great. What I'm gonna do, Rachael, is I'm gonna read your I want to read your bio so that everybody kind of knows your background, and then I'll just have you kind of tell a little bit about what's going on in your world, because everything is new in all of our worlds, right?
That's right.
So Rachael is a transformation, leadership, and executive coach who empowers professionals to learn how to end overwhelm and thrive at work. For the past decade, Rachael's experience in sales and client services at Google has helped her have a pulse on what it takes to be a successful and thriving leader, meaning steering clear of burnout, I know that well, staying on a mission, and feeling great as you do so. Her book, Pause, was one of the top business books for career, and she's been featured in the NYTimes, the Wall Street Journal, and the Harvard Business Review. One fun fact, I love that you put a fun fact in here, Rachael. One fun fact is that Rachael is back in grad school again, getting her master's degree in transformational leadership at the Wright Graduate University in Chicago, and currently studying how to live purposefully and spiritually to develop. And so, yeah, so really, really fun subject. I love that you're getting your master's degree in transformation. So tell us a little bit about who you are, Rachael. I love your background.
Yeah, so I straddle the line of the corporate world and then this other world of coaching and emotional and social learning. So I have been at Google for a dozen or so years, and prior to that I was at DoubleClick. So I've had a career in technology and corporate America for the last 25 years. So I feel like that's an area of expertise that I can offer now that I have turned over a new leaf, as I've learned more about how to be more aware, how to really leverage who I am and understand how I feel, so that I can be with myself and others as I create the leadership in my legacy, the way I want to live and help lead others in my life, whether it's my family or my husband or my friends and family or my coworkers.
Yeah, I love that. So the one thing I didn't read on your bio that I love, that I'd love for you to talk about, is that you also do a lot of helpful hints and coaching with people about how to stay out of overwhelm. And, you know, if I think about the time that we're in right now with the virus and everything that's going on, people are feeling really, really overwhelmed. So I just want to ground into that as we start this. Like, talk to us about what that looks like from the work that you do.
Yeah. Right. So from my perspective, a little bit of my background. So if you haven't come across the book Pause before, which is I burned out of Google. I burned out of Google in about several years ago and really didn't understand why. And I think many of us who relate to that, if you do relate to that, a lot of us don't know it's coming, or we think we're okay and we think we can manage it, but we kind of underestimate what happens as a result. So my own experience has been how I've shifted from being in overwhelm and feeling like a failure and not knowing I could change anything, to kind of the 180 of that, which is that I have the power, I have the personal influence and power to create the boundaries, limits, and expectations of my life, and also really be more aware of how I feel and what responsibility I can have in terms of what I want to do in my day to day. So that's a little bit of how it's led me to being a coach and going back for my master's in coaching and transformation, because here's the thing, that they're all learnable skills, but we're not really taught this unless we come across someone who is an expert in the field, or we happen to attend a talk or need to get advice because we've already burned out and it's too late, or we think it's too late. So now, given our current health pandemic with
Right.
COVID, it's important more now than ever to understand that each of us can pause, and I call a pause an intentional shift in behavior, as the world has a global pause, by the way.
Yeah,
A pause
right.
happens when we're out of alignment. That's
Yeah.
what happened to me when I burned out. I thought I was doing okay, and I thought I could figure it out, and I was this great achiever like you, where I was had all these accolades listed and other things in my life that went great. However, why all of a sudden was I in this rut or feeling horrible about how my day was going? So
Right.
that, I think, is a lot of us can easily fall into that and be a culprit of burnout. But right now, in our current pandemic, it's really important to pause right now and understand, like, how are you feeling? What is it that you need so that you can help serve others, not just you, but others as well. But if we aren't really secure in how we're feeling, or meaning we know how we feel and acknowledging that, then it's really hard to do it with others, if that makes sense. And that's kind of like an emotional intelligence 101 thing that I share. But the cool part is we can all learn these skills.
Mm-hmm. So I love how you talk about we should have been taught it in school, right? I've said that so many times. Like, imagine, like, over the last 5 years as I've been on my journey, like, imagine if I would have had these skills, back in the day, kind of thing. And so talk to us a little bit about that. Do you see that changing in schools at all? Even with this pause that we're experiencing on a global basis right now, do you see that changing?
I do. I think it's slow, though, and I think that's okay. I think it's where we're at. And one of the best things to think about, if anyone's a coach out there, is you meet people where they're at, and this is no different. So understanding where I'm at right now can help me be with others. But there are new programs that are opening up. Nonprofits are opening up. It's also becoming part of curriculum in certain geolocations, certain places. But it's slow, just like any change, any systemic change takes time. But the cool part is, like I mentioned, we can practice this with our families. Parents can be the teachers. There's some great resources and books out there. Pause has a lot of tips in there, but man, there's a lot of resources as well. And I think it's only going to be accelerated with what's happening now.
Yeah. So when you talk about pause, I love the name of that. And you also have a pause cast. So you have a podcast called Pausecast, right?
Yeah.
So go check that out, everyone. But like, I know that you're going to take us through kind of what that pause looks like, but before we go there, what's the opposite of that? So what happens if I'm today, I'm moving and going, and I don't stop? I get that burnout is there, but let's go a little bit deeper with that burnout. What happens when people go into that burnout kind of a mentality?
Yeah. So I actually talk a lot about this on the podcast. Like you said, that's the podcast I have. And the idea is that, I guess, the opposite is autopilot, where you're just unaware. And that can mean a whole bunch of different things for people. But the idea is when we're not getting what we need, whether it means feeling connected to ourselves, feeling like we're like we matter, or we're making a difference or valued, or we're so busy we don't stop to notice anything, like that's important to notice. Then we become depleted. And all of us can relate to this. Even when we're doing a project that we love, if we're not aware of how we feel, we still get exhausted, right? We're drained. We feel like maybe we can't continue. So it's a really fine line. And one of the key things that I know helps me personally is to pause. It doesn't mean I have to slow down necessarily, but it's a check-in. It's like, okay, how am I doing right now in the moment? And that really matters, so that I can tweak and align, like it's like creating your course on sail, like on a sailboat, tacks to take with your little sail on the mast, is like you do a little degree and you can shift dramatically. So I think that's a really important factor when it comes to burnout, because to me, that's the main issue, is if you just keep going right now with our world, especially with extra stress that we're all feeling and potential overwhelm, we need to make it intentional, or else we do not create that. And it takes our conscious mind, it takes our thinking brain, the prefrontal cortex, to engage in that way and take us off of autopilot. But it takes effort, it's hard, it's not what we want to do if we're really active and want to do stuff and we're trained to go, 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 or be the achievers that we all are, type A's maybe.
Yeah.
So that's what we're up against, but but like now more than ever is the time to practice.
Right. I remember when I was first learning how to meditate and I was like, what, are you serious? Like it's hard. It's a muscle, right? You have to really practice learning how to do that pause.
Yeah. And the cool part, I keep saying cool part, but I guess it's all cool to me. So pausing doesn't need to be meditation. It's about what works for you in the moment. So it's an intentional shift in behavior. So it might mean that you sit down and do 10 belly breaths, which is a great daily pause, but it might mean you're actually taking a walk and noticing things that are new, creating your own experience, noticing the sensations like colors and what you're hearing. Might be having a risky conversation with someone, telling the truth that wasn't expressed. These are all things that are aligning to your authenticity in the moment. And I keep saying in the moment, but it's so important to recognize in the here and now is only when we get nourished. And that happens when we pause.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And so if I how do you begin to recognize because there's a self-awareness and the self-recognition that goes with it, right? So I think a lot of the times people just move on with their life and they don't even know that they need to pause, right?
Exactly.
So how does one become aware of that in the very beginning?
Yeah. So I talk about the 5 signs you need a pause. This is in Pause the Book, but I'll recap them right here. The first one is you used to love your job and now you loathe it. So that's an extreme example, but if you're starting to think, this was a great job, what's going on? Why is it suddenly so hard? Or why am I challenged so much? Or why do I dislike what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Probably something shifted internally if your job hasn't changed too much, or even if it has, something might've changed. The second one is you get the proverbial pink slip. Potentially your boss tells you it's not working out, or you get some feedback that maybe things aren't going great. It doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means I'm out of alignment. And that's what I realized. I realized I'm not a failure. I'm just not in the right role. And that's how I ended up going into my account sales job. The third thing is an opportunity walks on your door. So this is in this example right now in the COVID era, the pandemic, we're all being called, right? We're all being called to lead in some way. It might be with your family as you connect and have more time with your kids. It might be in your job where a team is relying on inspiration and feeling like maybe they're helpless, and how can you make sure that they are not seen that way or valued, going back to those deeper hungers. And then the fourth one is that there's a challenge happens. So there might be a health issue. Like maybe you are with the coronavirus, you know someone, that's where we're at, is a lot of people know someone affected at this point. And that is an idea to pause. So it means maybe I shift my routine, or I don't go outside and I don't wear a mask because the other medical people need it. And things like that. And then the last one is you have a technology intervention. And this one I think is really true because more now than ever, we're tethered to our devices. So one of my favorite ways to pause is a DDP, a digital device pause. But if any of those 5 happen to you, so you're not loving your job, you're getting feedback, there's a challenge or an opportunity. And I would consider all of us are right now in a challenge, right? Yep. Would you agree? So that's to me, that's a sign you need a pause. And it doesn't mean a huge pause. I have many ways that there are different ways to pause, but I think those are kind of my 5 telltale signs. And you might have one or more, but chances are people usually have one at the minimum. I know I had all 5 of those when I took a long pause, an extended 3-month unpaid break. But I realize that's not an option for most people. Right. And even if you do, sometimes it's forced, like a layoff. But the idea is that you aren't just sitting around, you are intentional with your time so that you can feel and make the most of it to what really serves you.
Right. So with the virus and the pandemic and everything that we've got going on right now, from a leadership perspective, what is your message right now? What are you talking to clients about? What's on the top of the list?
Yeah, so I actually just put a podcast out on this as well very recently about this topic. And I think it's an occasion for all of us, like I said, to rise to the leadership that we can provide. And for me, I'm trained to think about leadership as the ability to influence.
Yep.
Period. The ability to influence others. So how can you show up to influence others right now in this pandemic? Maybe your kids need a role model right now. Maybe your spouse or partner is like cranky and like you guys have different schedules and different opinions. But how are you the leader? How are you listening intentionally and actively? How are you being responsible in your response and asserting yourself? How are you handling your fear? Are you just sharing that you're scared right now? That's a wonderful way to lead, is vulnerability, right? Brené Brown talks a lot about that in her research.
Love Brené
So all
Brown.
of those are powerful ways to lead. Again, it's the ability to influence others. And all of us are leaders in our own lives. Doesn't matter what your title is. It doesn't matter your gender. I mean, it's like, how are you showing up for you in the service of influence?
Yeah. And it's crazy. It's like we're all on this level playing field right now in that regard, right? Every single person has the ability right now, right here to like step forward into their leadership and create, which is that like makes me really excited, right? That we get to create what our future looks like. Nobody knows what it is. And we get to kind of create what that looks like. So the name of the podcast, Renee, is Your Leadership Legacy. And so when we're talking about your leadership legacy, and I don't know why I said Renee and not Rachel, but
I knew what you meant.
It's fine. I know. I was like, what is happening right now? What is like, and I'm sure that this is huge because I know, with your background and the work that you're doing in the world, but like, what's your legacy? What legacy do you aspire? What's the work that you're doing right now so that you can leave an amazing legacy?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a great question. So yeah, for me, it brings me back. So I've done a lot of work on myself, right? Like really thought about who I am and what I want to do in this world. And so for me, my purpose, like who I'm striving to become, is to be an agent of change who transforms others while I transform myself. Like that's it. So agent of change, like that's my leadership legacy, is how am I, and that can be from like a one-on-one conversation to the planet or the universe, even beyond the planet. In that it's how I show up as someone who wants and fosters and incubates change. And to me, we have a lot of change to do if we want to continue to live on this planet. I think the pandemic has really got some key signals and like obviously like big messages in it, at a meta level, and also this micro level of like just caring for others on a daily basis and empathy. So that's my legacy is and then showing up period. And knowing whatever my fears are, knowing my belief system, because we all come in on some level with something, like whether it's the fear of like showing up and being visible, because that's another thing I think a lot of us, especially women, are challenged with, including me. So it's about taking that breath, like just taking a breath, inhaling, holding it, exhaling, checking in with myself, just asking myself how I feel, even if I am feeling fear in the moment, and being like, okay, like, yeah, I feel fear. I don't really want to show up right now, but how am I doing on my purpose? Am I aligned with being an agent of change as a leader, or even as myself? Because to me, it's synonymous. If I'm showing up, I'm a leader. If I'm influencing, right? And that's how I think of things. So I don't know what that means in terms of actual tangibles. Like, I guess I have things in the world that I'm producing, but those are what I make. That's not who I am.
Exactly.
My leadership is about who I can become.
Beautiful, beautiful. Will you lead us through? I know that you can lead us through. We get to learn how to pause, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So if you lead us through something like that, that would be amazing.
I will. So for all of us listening right now, what I'm going to do is I'll lead you through an intentional shift in behavior that's a belly breath pause. And one of my favorite ways to just come back to my center, if I feel a little frenetic or a little busy in my head, this helps drop me right down. So that's my invitation to you, is to uncross your arms and uncross your legs. If you're listening to this, maybe you're driving or something outside, who knows? Just allow yourself to feel your feet on the ground. You can close your eyes if you feel comfortable with that. Otherwise, you can soften your gaze and look a couple feet out, but unfocused. And just go ahead and take a deep breath. And exhale. You can put one hand on your diaphragm, on your belly, just feeling your body, inhaling through your nose. Hold. And exhale. And on this third one, we'll do the same thing, but we'll let out a verbal sigh. So inhaling through your nose, holding it, and just take a deep exhale and let out whatever noise you want to share. And go ahead and take your hand off your belly, open your eyes, wiggle your toes or your fingers, feeling the sensations there. So I'm curious how many people feel that difference of just a state change where that was 3 breaths. I know I did.
Yeah. Grounded. Like grounded is the word that's coming to me, right? Like whenever I take the time to do that, when it's so important to take the time, it just really grounds you into, again, kind of like what you were saying, who you say you want to be. I would say I wanted to be this grounded person, this calm person, and then I would go out and I'd be like, ah! You know what I mean? And so like, I love how you were talking about earlier about who you say you want to be versus who you show up as.
Right. Because we're all in that bind, right? We're all in that bind. And we could be like this in 1 second. And then the next second, we're back to our frenetic selves. And that's how humans are. It's not like anything else other than that. So the key is to continue to practice. And it doesn't need to be a belly breath pause. It could literally be going out and noticing the colors in the trees from your window because you're not going outside. It could be eye contact with your family member and just being present for someone and yourself, noticing a feeling. All of those things are ways to pause.
Yeah. I love the looking in your eyes. Like I want to stretch anybody who's listening to this, go one of your family members, a spouse, partner, kids, whatever it is, just go look in their eyes, not even say anything. Spend 15, 20 seconds just looking in their eyes and connecting. It's an amazing experience.
Yeah. And what's funny, I'm glad you mentioned that, because what I've been noticing, so I've gone out on some walks in our neighborhood and just been outside, locally for some air, and there's not a lot of eye contact. I'll be looking at people and sometimes I don't do it. And there's so much fear. People don't want to be seen. Yeah. People want to hide. So it's hard, and it takes courage for all of us to extend ourselves in that way. They're the windows to the soul, as we also say, right? But eye contact is one of the most nourishing activities you can get. And every single human on the planet wants to be seen in some way, whether you admit it or not. It's just a human desire.
Yeah. And being a leader, we're talking about leadership here, right? Like being a leader is saying, no, I'm going to look you in the eyes, whether you're uncomfortable or not, right? Like we get to have this. And so, like that's,
and whether I'm uncomfortable or not.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we think we'll be okay, and then you end up darting away, and that's normal. It's scary to meet someone face to face in a truthful moment like that. And that's what you can create anytime you're with someone.
Yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful. So Rachael, how can people find you? Where are you at?
Yeah, so I have a website with it's a great gift for anyone listening. My website's rachaelomeara.com, and it's also on the podcast, which if you just Google or look at any channel for podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, like I'm on there. I do have the podcast, and then a free gift, which is a guidebook for the 3 keys to stay out of overwhelm and thrive. So if you go to my website, you can put your name in and get that free guidebook. It's called a blueprint. So I encourage everyone to do that. And the podcast is monthly. So I have great guests on there. And like I said, I just did the COVID episode edition out, which is my best practices and tips as we're in this together.
That's amazing. Amazing, amazing. I want to thank you. I just myself met you, and I think you're amazing, the work that you do and your background and everything else. So thank you for everything that you give out to the world and who you are, and just for stepping up and being the amazing leader that you are.
Thank you, Tina. I really appreciate that. It's an honor to be here too with you. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. All right, you guys, that's it. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
My name is Tina Paulus-Krause, and I thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show. Check out our programs and events at trueutteams.com. And until next time, make it an amazing day.